All right, hello, Algebra 2 people. Here is a video key for your PA1 to PA2 knowledge check. I've already completed the key, so I'm just going to go through and explain it, which I think will make the video a little shorter. In these problems, we are stating the domain and range for all these graphs, and then saying whether or not the given relation is a function. So domain, graphically, well, by definition, domain is all the possible x and y values within a function or a graph, or in this case, a relation, because it's not necessarily a function. And so graphically, you're just looking how far left does the graph go to how far right does it go. And so you pick the smallest x value here, which is -5, out to the biggest x value there, which is 3. And so in interval notation, this just means the smallest number is -5, the biggest number is 3. We count all the numbers in between these two, which is what the comma essentially represents. And we have brackets here because these numbers are used. Like, we get to count the number -5. We will see graphs where instead of a filled-in circle, this will be an open circle where it's hollow, and then you don't count this number and we use parentheses instead. But for now, it's just -5 to 3, and they're both inclusive, we say, so they're both included. And then our range starts with the lowest value up to the highest value, which is -1 to 7. Again, brackets on both of those. And this is not a function because it does not pass the vertical line test. It only has to happen in one place, but there's many places where you can draw a vertical line, and the vertical line is going to hit more than once, which means for an x value, let's draw one here. That means the x value right here has more than one different y value. Okay, let's jump over to this one. Again, domain is as far left as it goes for the x to as far right as it goes, and just state the x value. So it's -5 out to 5 right there. And that's that. Range goes from lowest to highest y value, so -2 to 6, which is that. And it is a function because it passes the vertical line test everywhere. Domain of this one, again, as far left as it goes to as far right as it goes, which is -5 to 3. And then our range is as low as it goes to as high as it goes, which is -2 to 5. And this one is also a function because it passes the vertical line test. This one's a little bit weirder. Notice how there's no connection to any of these points. These are just floating points. There's nothing else. So there is no x value between this x value, which is -3, and 0. Like, this x value doesn't exist, -2, -1 doesn't exist. So you can't write it in interval notation because interval notation means all the numbers between these two numbers. So in this weird case where it's just a bunch of points, you just have to list out each x value for your domain and each y value for your range. Notice how the x value of -3 occurs twice. I only wrote it once. You don't need to write repeating values. So it looks like there's one more domain value than range value, but there's not. This one just occurs twice. And since you have the same x value twice with different y values, it's not a function. Or if you did draw a vertical line, it's going to hit both those points, so it fails vertical line test. Here, this one's a little bit different because this graph goes left forever, even though it goes very slowly. As this continues down like this, it's going to move this way a little bit. And same as it goes up, it still moves to the right. So our domain is -infinity to infinity because the graph goes left and right forever. Infinities always have parentheses around them because it's a concept, not a number, so you can't actually like equal infinity, so you never put a bracket. Our range goes down forever to up forever. That's might be easier for some of us to see than how it goes left and right forever, but so our range is also -infinity to infinity, and this is a function because it passes vertical line test. This one really should have arrows on it. If it doesn't clearly show points at the end, like a point like this, like an endpoint, then you can assume that it goes on forever, I think is safe to assume. So that means this graph actually goes left forever and right forever as this U shape continues to expand in both directions forever. But our range, it does have a lowest y value of -4, but then the graph does go up forever. So you start at -4 and you go to infinity, excuse me. And this again is a function because it passes vertical line test. Okay, now we do have a starting point here. So our domain, that it goes left to -5, but then it goes right forever. So -5 to infinity. Our range, it goes down to -2. Sorry, that was a down arrow. But it goes from here, it goes up forever. This graph is going to continue to go up as it extends out. So it's here, but it's going to keep going up. So the lowest point is -2, and the highest point is forever, infinity. And again, it's a function because it passes the vertical line test. Now this one doesn't go on forever, but it does have a connection here, so we can use interval notation. And we are left to -2 and right to 4, which is our domain. And our range is how low you go to how high you go, which is 1 to 4. And again, it's a function because it passes vertical line test. Okay, so here I have you plot the given points just so you can see, visually look at this to see if it's a function or not. But really, you should be able to tell just from looking at these points whether or not it's a function. Graphically, do you have 2 points that are above each other? And we do. This green point and the purple point, one is right above another. That means you have 2 x's for 1 y, or 2 inputs, or sorry, 1 x for 2 y's, or you have 1 input that has 2 different outputs, or it fails the vertical line test graphically. So this one's not a function because there are 2 different outputs for the same input, or graphically you have the same x but different y for 2 points. Okay, and then you can look at this one real quick, but here's just a graph of it, and it is a function because every input has exactly 1 output, or graphically every x value only occurs once. Okay, so number 3, is the following relation a function? No, because it fails the vertical line test, as you can see here. And this is just one random vertical line. I could draw this vertical line anywhere. Remember, it only has to occur in one spot. On a circle, it's going to occur in a lot of spots. Actually, infinitely many if I can draw like lines that are really close to each other. And this one is a function because it passes the vertical line test, which means there's nowhere you can draw a vertical line that hits the graph more than once. It's just not possible. Okay, number 5 is just an explanation of what it means to be, or to pass the vertical line test, or to fail it. So you can read that. All right, so now we have function notation. So f of 8 is how you read this. That just means x is equal to 8. So you're just plugging in 8 for this x and evaluating. So I plugged in 8. 8 plus 15 is 23. So like you can summarize by saying f of 8 equals 23. This is just the work to get us there. But that's the same thing as just saying the point 8, 23, like a coordinate 8, 23. So that's the same. On this problem, same thing. This is our x value. So we plug this in for this x. Be careful here, especially if you're using a calculator. Sometimes students write this wrong, but they calculate it correctly. But if you write it wrong and use a calculator, the calculator is going to calculate not what you mean potentially. So my point is you have to use these parentheses because the negative also gets squared. So this means -3 times -3, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So that's where that comes from. A lot of students will write it like this and then calculate it correctly. But if you write it like this and type it in a calculator, you're going to get -8 because it's going to square the 3 first because it's following order of operations. So you get 9, then you make the 9 negative, and then add 1. So be careful with that. On number 8, we have absolute value. So absolute value just means, by definition, it's how far you are from 0 on a number line, but a distance has to be positive. So if you plug in a negative number for absolute value, it becomes positive, and you should do 4 plus 10 to get 14. So f of -4 equals 14. And number 9, the volume of a cube is given by this function. So you just take your side length and cube it, and then it says evaluate v of 4. So v of 4, plug in 4 for x, cube it, so you get 4 cubed equals 64. And this means that a cube that has a side length of 4 has a volume of 64. So that's where this notation can kind of be useful maybe. This is what you plug in. So you plug in a number for that, and it finds the value of this function, which is called v for volume. All right, I'll let you read this problem here. But basically we have a function right here that we're going to use where b is the length of a femur bone and h is height. So here they give us the length of a femur bone. So we're just going to evaluate h of 15.5. So just like the math we did in the problems above. So we plug 15.5 in for b right there, calculate that, and you get that. B is a little trickier because this is not, we need this in inches because the problem tells us in inches. So our conversion to 5 feet, 11 inches, You have to do 5 times 12 to convert 5 inches to feet. And then there's 12 inches in a foot, so we have 11 inches, so you got to do 11 twelfths. So this converts the number to a decimal. So now we know how tall, oops, I should say 60. So now we know how tall the person is in inches, but that's like our y value in this equation. So that replaces what we call h of b. Remember, in function notation, this is just like saying f of x is really just the same as saying y, like y equals. So we are now given our y value. So we set that equal to our equation right here. Then you got to do a little algebra. So we're trying to get this b by itself. I subtracted 28.7 from both sides, got this. Jump over to here. So now we have this purple equation. Get rid of the 1.95 by dividing both sides by that, and it gets you b by itself. Okay, and I'll let you take a look at this domain and range answer here. The domain was actually given to us. That's just the possible b values. So in interval notation, it looks like that. And then since this is just a linear equation, the graph is going to just look something like this. And so the lowest point will be at 15, and the highest point will be at 24. So all we have to do is plug in 15 and 24 into our equation and get the y values there, which are the heights, which are the range values in this case. And those are those numbers, and written in interval notation is right there. And that's it. Let me know if you have any questions next time you see me.